No, you don't ask somebody. A tambourine is a tambourine. We know what they're using it for. They're making noise, right?
Welcome to Experience Points, presented by our friends at Avtex, who transform customer experience through CX design and orchestration. On Experience Points, contestants earn points by answering customer experience questions and share their insight on how to make your interactions remarkable. Those points turn into dollars for the charity of their choosing. I'm Dan Gingiss.
And I'm Joey Coleman, and we'd love to introduce you to today's contestant. I consider him the godfather of customer experience. He's a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author of 7 books. He's a member of the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame. He's an accomplished magician and a hockey player. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Experience Points, the incomparable Mr. Shep Hyken.
All right, the Godfather. That's
the Godfather.
Those are big. The Godfather. And just, I know you felt you had to correct yourself. Yes, I do magic, but I also play music. You can see the guitars behind me. So you got the musician and the magician thing together.
You know, there's a thing or two I know about you, Shep, is that you are a Renaissance man with a lot of skills, a lot of capabilities, a lot of expertise, which is why we wanted to have you on Experience Points.
Well, thank you.
So, Shep, what is one thing about you that you haven't shared with an audience before?
Wow. Well, thanks for giving me a heads up on this question. Well, I think I need to start talking about it more. I've just been thinking about it, and that is the first job I ever had. And I was 8 years old, and I've never talked about this from the stage. I worked for my grandfather. What's really cool about this, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but my grandfather had a pharmacy, small pharmacy in the middle of the what I would call the near north side of St. Louis. And I believe that being around wonderful people from all different races, cultures, backgrounds helped me at an 8-year-old, 9-year-old stage, because I did it 2 summers, just become a more inclusive person, and I'm so honored with that.
Well, Shep, you're going to be playing today for a charity that I know from our conversations is very special to you. Can you tell us a little bit about the charity you'll be playing for and why you're excited to support them?
So it is the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. My mother, about 10 years ago, I said, "Mom, you're shaken. And is that Parkinson's?" She says, "No, it's not." And sure enough, a few years later, it went from being some type of tremor to, yes, you have Parkinson's. And today, it's really evident and obvious. She has, in my opinion, some of the worst diagnosis. She shakes. She has dementia. It's a tough, tough deal. On any given day, you get old mom or you get current day mom. You're not sure what you're going to get, but this is very important to us. So thank you all. Thank you, Avtex, for allowing this to happen.
We're sorry to hear that about your mom, and I know that you're close with her, but I'm glad that you're playing for her today, and I'm sure you're going to make her proud. So today, we are going to be playing a game called What Happened?
In What Happened, watch the first half of an experience story. Choose what you think happens next from 4 possible endings. Answer correctly for 500 points. If incorrect, you'll be granted an extra life and the opportunity to answer from the remaining 3 endings for 250 points.
Are you ready to get started, Shep Hyken?
I am ready. Let's rock and roll.
Fantastic. Well, this story comes from Diane Richmond Knox. Diane was formerly the Global Vice President for Sales at Universum in Singapore. And she has a story about an interesting customer experience that she wanted to share.
So here's a great customer service story for you. I sing in rock bands just for fun, charity gigs, that sort of thing. And not long ago, I decided I needed a tambourine. And I did a fair bit of research. I've never bought myself a tambourine before. So I looked around, I found a great website. I found a used tambourine that I thought would totally work for my purposes, and I made the order. And a few days after it arrived, my phone rang in the middle of the afternoon one day, and I picked up, and on the other end of the line, the person said, "Hey, it's Shauna from the company. I see here that you just ordered a tambourine."
Now, what's interesting, Shep, is that Diane got this call from Shauna, and Shauna wanted to ask Diane a question. You get to choose what happened next by deciding which question Shauna asked. Was it A, did you receive the tambourine that you ordered? B, how are you planning to use it? C, do you want to buy a triangle? Or D, did you know that we have a tambourine playing course online? Shep, what do you think happened next? What happened when Diane got this call from Shauna?
Well, I would assume the first thing that really happened was a thank you for doing business with us. But I realized, so maybe that'll get me some bonus points, because I believe that's what should have happened first. I think a triangle goes with a tambourine. I think will eventually upsell with the tambourine online, but I don't think that's what comes out of your mouth first. I think number one, they'd want to make sure that you, after they said thank you, did you receive it? And then the rest of the questions would come.
All right, so you are saying A, did you receive the tambourine you ordered?
After the thank you.
Shep, I am sorry, but that is not what happened.
Oh, really? Well, I'm disappointed in the tambourine company.
So, you now get an extra life, and you need to choose wisely. There are only 3 choices left.
Uh-oh.
What do you think happened?
Well, let's take a look at these 3 choices. I would say then if they weren't willing to say thank you, want to make sure you got it, then this was a sales call. This is definitely, did you know we have a tambourine playing course online? I would have to think that's where we're going with this. But
and how would that make you feel as a customer service and customer experience expert?
You know, I would really hope that they would have started out with the appreciation comment. I think they would have wanted to make sure I received it. They should have warmed me up a little bit. And then I think, you know, you have a tambourine. How are you planning to use it? Well, I was actually looking for a way to get my chair, which is wobbly. I was going to slide it under that so it wouldn't. No, you don't ask somebody. A tambourine is a tambourine. We know what they're using it for. They're making noise, right? So, do you want to buy a triangle? No, I think it's got to be D. It's like the upsell. Do you want to sign up for a course?
All right, Shep, let's see what happened.
So where were we? Oh yeah, she said, I see here you ordered a tambourine. What you gonna do with it? And for the next minute and 44 seconds, because I looked later, Shauna from Sweetwater and I had an awesome conversation about what I was gonna do with that tambourine and what I was up to, and did I need anything else? And do you know what? On that particular day, I didn't. But not long after, I realized I should upgrade my mic. And you know who I called? I called Shauna.
Wait, you know what? You didn't tell me it was Sweetwater.
I love it. No, Shep, you bring up an excellent point. You know, intentionally here at Experience Points, we don't reveal the brand in the first part of the video for the exact reason that you just hinted at. Sweetwater has an incredible reputation, as it sounds like you're very familiar with, amongst the musicians in the world. Yes. And so if you would have known it was Sweetwater, you would have known that it's not about the upsell. It's not about, well, what can we do to get more money out of you? It's about building rapport and connection. And I think that's the really important piece here. And while, you know, frankly, we didn't get the answer right, I think you actually hinted at it when you said, start from a place of appreciation. Start from a place of thank you so that you can build that personal and emotional connection with the customer from the very beginning.
You know, here's what Sweetwater does so well, and every business can learn from Sweetwater, is that they want to build a relationship with their musicians. I don't know if that person specifically said, hey, what are you going to do with the tambourine? I bet she did ask, or maybe it was a he, hey, do you play in a band? You know, not what are you going to do with it? How, but more like, how does this fit into what you do? And I think that was, really what the intention was, building a relationship.
I think also with this emotional connection, it's really about personalization. I mean, you mentioned that there may or may not be multiple things that you can do with the tambourine, but I think the real thought behind the question is about trying to get to know that customer more, and to get to know, it's a first purchase with Sweetwater. A tambourine is a unique instrument. It's not maybe everybody's first purchase. And I think that Shauna, I believe her name was really just trying to get to know the customer and get them talking. And what I thought was really interesting was how memorable that was for her, just to get a phone call in the first place that wasn't about selling them on something else.
You know what? But I'm going to go back to the line that really, even though that's the way she interpreted the call, it was really an expression of appreciation and a way to connect. And it was a great conversation. This is what Sweetwater does so well. And I'm amazed. I had a chance to study that company and learn that anybody that works there probably has a music background to start with, but the training, they go through weeks and weeks of training to learn about all of the instruments and the technology they sell and how to take care of that customer, who they treat truly like a member of their own band.
Oh, I love it, Shep. So true. If we're going to ask our employees to deliver remarkable customer experiences, we have to teach and train our employees how to do that. It's interesting. One of the things I loved about this story is that she does ask, how are you planning to use it? And while I appreciate that you as a musician and I as a musician, and Dan's actually a musician as well, the three of us here are all musicians, we have a vision of how you would use a tambourine, how you would use the product. How often do companies presume a use case for their product or their service that doesn't actually match up with the reality for the person who placed the order? And I think by starting in that first sale with, let me find out more about you, let me make a personal and emotional connection, let me see what it is that we're trying to create here and how you're going to use our product, by getting information and being a little bit more of an investigator or a detective, it creates that foundation. And what I love is how Diane concludes the story by saying, they didn't try to upsell me anything on that first call, but you can bet when I needed another product that they sold that was in their suite of offerings, I immediately reached out to them. And if you'll notice, and you think back to the recording of what Diane said, she didn't say, I called Sweetwater. She said, I called Shauna. And to me, that's the difference. When your employees make a personal and emotional connection, yes, they represent the brand. Yes, they speak for the brand, but it creates a connection between two human beings as opposed to a consumer and a business.
Yep. Very smart people at Sweetwater, sharp and I guess, for lack of a better term, emotionally connected. So I love it. They also, how to use, I think they could ask questions to get a survey like, do you use your hip or your hand with the tambourine? No, I'm just kidding. But learn as much as you can about your customers and what they do and why they're buying your products. And you know what? You become a partner, not just a vendor. And I think the partnership is like a vendor relationship on steroids. And that's where your loyalty and repeat business comes from.
So true. So true. Well, Dan, let's recap how Shep did playing What Happened.
Unfortunately, as you know, this game, a correct answer is worth 500 points, which you did not get on the first try. And when you had your extra life, unfortunately, you picked a different answer as well. However, I did speak with the judges, and they've authorized your $50 bonus that you asked for. And so you don't walk away empty-handed.
Did I say 50? I thought I said 150.
For the Michael J. Foundation, Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. But hey, we have another game to play with you, and we know that you are going to continue to earn more money.
Friends, that concludes this episode of Experience Points. Check out more games with Shep and our other celebrity contestants at experiencepointsgame.com. That's experiencepointsgame.com. We'll see you soon for more examples of remarkable experiences here at Experience Points, presented by Avtex.
there was an interesting question that they led off with, right? But it yielded a pretty visceral emotional response. In this instance, is she's almost surprised that it wasn't a sales call. She was almost surprised that it was just somebody reaching out to connect. But that changed the tenor of her view of this company, right? Well, to the point where she went back and bought something different. So there's obviously an aspect of getting to know the customer that came to life in a real way here. So I don't know if you want to expound upon that.
Well, yeah. So first of all, I was surprised that they didn't call up and say, "Do you want more cowbell?" So that was the one that came to my mind.
Kurt, remember, you always need more cowbell. So that's a rhetorical type of question.
So I was surprised at the whole triangle. No one likes triangle. Cowbell. That was the question that I thought for sure was going to be there.